I'm mad about Game of Thrones this week. Well, we're not talking about that because we're talking about comics. I'm Mike, alongside with.
I'm Vincent, and we have, for the first time ever on this prestigious show, we have a guest, potential long-term guest, maybe a one-time guest, to be determined. We have Mandak, Dan. Go check out his channel, Mandak. And also, we'll be discussing a tiny bit. Free Comic Book Day happened this past weekend, and Mandak hit us with a Free Comic Book Day haul. So I'll let him introduce himself and do a little spiel if he'd like to.
Yeah, thanks, Vince. So yeah, just like what they said, I'm Dan, part of the students of S.H.I.E.L.D, just like all these other guys are. And
Well, I mean, we say students, but it's now just sad at this point because we're all graduated.
more like sad alumni of S.H.I.E.L.D. But yeah, so I have my own channel, Mandak. Go check it out. Just did a haul video for Free Comic Book Day. And yeah, just here to talk comics, talk some modern, just release comics and some other stuff, which I don't really do a lot of, but excited to jump in and do this new series with you guys. So
We'll quickly hit some news items. There's not a ton. Marvel, and I don't even know where this is. Bleeding Cool has pulled some pages of teases related to Marvel. I don't know where they're finding this.
It's vague Marvel teasers.
Because they're taking photos of some kind of print thing, but obviously the August, well, it says August, so obviously it's not from August previews because that'll be explained. I don't know where these are. Maybe they're in the books, but we have Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas. That's what they're called, right?
yes.
And he's going to be collaborating with Jeffrey Verege, who is a Native American comic artist who did Red Wolf and some covers for books and stuff like that. Al Ewing and George Perez collaborating. George Perez is supposed to be retired. Joe Hill.
So, I do want to say that apparently he was talking. I don't know if it was a formal interview or like someone was talking to him at a con, but I was reading like comments on Reddit, so take that with a grain of salt. But he said, "I'm fine to come back is for some things and draw pages, but not like ever on ongoing." He's like, if the project's right enough, he said he'd always entertain the idea of coming back. So with the never say never attitude.
The other thing is, depending on what this is, he could have done this before he announced his retirement.
Exactly.
Then there's Joe Hill and Mike Allred doing something. Joe Hill, the son of Stephen King. J. Michael Straczynski and Ed McGuinness together. Phil
That's
Lord,
a big one, as JMS kind of swore off Marvel after his Thor run was kind of distracted by Siege.
Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Those are they did Lego Movie and whatever else.
Spider-Verse.
Yeah, Spider-Verse. Working with Javier Rodriguez, who co-created Spider-Gwen, and Mark Waid and John Cassaday. Eric Larson by himself, Walt Simonson by himself, Alex Ross by himself, and Brad Meltzer working with Julian Totino Tedesco. I don't know if Meltzer's ever done anything with Marvel.
Off the top of my head, can't say that I've ever seen him do any work for Marvel.
So
he did Justice League, right, over at DC?
Yeah.
He did Justice League and Green Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And
Identity Crisis, but I guess that's really just a Justice League story.
Yeah. So we have no idea what that is. It's obviously, we assume, and especially there's some weird background with the covers. It's got to be related to their ongoing 80th anniversary celebration stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. Other huge news from today, Wednesday, May 8th, comic book publishers Lion Forge and Oni Press are merging. Lion Forge, located in St. Louis, no longer. They will be moving their critical staff and whatever to Oni in Portland. And I'm sure they have all kinds of exciting plans and everything. And I'm sure everyone on higher up and creatives are excited for this partnership. But it's worth noting, obviously, several people are probably going to be like, hey, I'm here in St. Louis, and I either don't want to move all the way to Portland, and or they're about to cut my job. And so our best wishes go out to those people. But interesting times in the comic business. In fact, this was announced in a New York Times article talking about small comic publishers in general, and it was announcing this merger, and then also a little bit of a highlight on some of the very new publishers to the game: Ahoy, TKO, and AWA, and at least the former two have published things already.
Well, TKO's in a very kind of strange way, but a more
Yeah.
unique way of everything else.
So now we'll do a kind of semi-haul thing. Dan,
Well, I figured out that one story we want to talk about, or I'll mention it quickly. The DC animated shorts are coming back.
oh
You
yeah,
want that?
and those are bumped onto the movies, right?
Yeah, there's special features on the DC animated like class or whatever they're called now. They used to be the DC Universe Classics or Animated Classics or whatever. But yeah, they announced 5 new ones, most of them being overseen directly and directed by Bruce Timm. I guess this is their next project of just keeping him entertained because he's bored
Yeah.
and clearly doesn't want to still be there. Um, which is why we've gotten things like Batman and Harley Quinn and the most recent Justice League vs. the Fatal Five. All projects for Tim to kind of dig in on. But we're getting Sergeant Rock, Adam Strange, Death, the Phantom Stranger, and Batman, Death, the Family, which apparently that's opening with a new live action branding sequence. It'll have Easter eggs. For Sergeant Rock, Carl Urban's gonna voice Sergeant Rock.
Yeah, those are all exciting ones. Death in the Family, not that exciting to me, and I don't know how they'll pull off that in a very short time.
I'm guessing it's just gonna be like the final 10-minute sequence of Jason getting beaten down.
That would be strange.
But then again, didn't we get that at the beginning of the Under the Red Hood movie? So yeah, all of Death in the Family being its own DC showcase short is very, very odd.
Was one of them Death? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
All right, that'll be really interesting to see what kind of animation art style they go for that.
Phantom Stranger will be cool. I know the J.M. DeMatteis is writing the Adam Strange one, and he's also writing the Death one.
Yeah, he does a lot of animation stuff recently. I mean, he wrote the Justice League Dark movie, I believe, or had some involvement. And he wrote, I think, all of the Constantine animated show, where they did like a spin-off sequel to the canceled live-action show of Constantine.
Yeah, that was on CW's like website.
All right, Free Comic Book Day was this weekend. As we said, Dan did a whole haul video, and so go over to watch the whole thing there. But Dan, do you want to quickly touch on some of the really cool things you got?
Yeah, actually, I probably grabbed the one that I was going to show. I'll bring it down here so you guys can see it. Oh shoot! Wait, I'm not getting over. So obviously, I got a few issues or a few collections and stuff. Nothing too fancy. But the crown jewel of what I found was actually not a comic book actually, but a statue of the Mark II armor from the comics. So this was $50, but I think it was $50 well spent. So statues are cool.
Yeah. So I picked up, the usual free comic books. I got some Dick Tracy strip reprint, not that exciting. And then I picked up some quick back issues, 3 issues of World's Finest, which I'm going to cut up for some Hawkman parts eventually, and an issue of Adventures of Superman. This is 506. This is kind of the Superboy spotlight issue. And just fresh off the racks, but actually not fresh. I reviewed this on our show a while back. I got Savage Dragon 243, which moves me away from a Free Comic Day related thing and into a weird haul thing, because this is a short box, and here's Savage Dragon number 1, number 2, number 3, but that's the mini series. And then here's Savage Dragon ongoing series number 1. And let's see, jump ahead. There are a little bit of gaps, but here's number 94. So I got a crap load of Savage Dragon. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Also, I got Solo, which I recently discovered this is a little bit out of print. And this was a cool, like, experimental. It was a cool experimental series that DC did sometime in like the 2000s or so. And it was 12 issues. And the idea was each issue, they would give the issue to a major, like, auteur comic writer artist. And they're all slightly oversized. Like, maybe there were 40 pages or 50 pages, and it's like, just do whatever the hell you want. So Howard Chaykin gets one. Tim Sale, Richard Corbin, Paul Pope, Howard Chaykin, Darwin Cook, Jordi Bernay, Michael Allred, Teddy Christensen, Scott Hampton, Damian Scott, Sergio Aragonis, and Brendan McCarthy. And so some crazy stuff. So that's my little haul. Now, Mike, what have you chosen to talk about?
Yeah, because I'm going. Dan, I'll see you there because I'm staying at your house for it. But I'm going to Phillipsburg Comic Con this weekend, and Joe Kelly is going to be there. And I am a Joe Kelly fan, but admittedly, I don't really own much of any of his work because most of the stuff I've read by him was like borrowed by friends that for some reason had like parts of his Deadpool runs in school because Deadpool was popular. But I've like written bits and pieces of like JLA stuff from like back issues. But I ended up grabbing from my LCS this week JLA number 78 and number 90.
Cool.
So I intend to get those signed by him at Phillipsburg.
Cool. So our legacy issue for this week is Swamp Thing, Volume 2, number 140, from February 1994. And this is the start of a run by Mark Miller and Phil Hester. And DC, relatively recently, has collected the whole run in 3 books. This is what the spines look like. And they look like this. And this is the very first issue of that run, following a run by Nancy Collins, which is soon to also get collected in an omnibus. And the weird thing about this run is that the first, I believe, 4 issues are co-written by Grant Morrison, because this is back in the day when Mark Miller and Grant Morrison were like buddies. And
Yeah.
Morrison was essentially Mark's mentor, and then they had a falling out, and now they kind of hate each other to the public's knowledge. And so this issue, it's a new run by big creators, and so you got to shake it up. And also, I want to note that also in the creative team is Tatiana Wood is the colorist, and I think she basically colored this entire series, because there may have been a gap in her run, possibly, but she was coloring this book way back in the beginning of Alan Moore. So that's over 100 issues in a row coloring this title. And so she deserves major credit for keeping a little bit of consistency through the years. Swamp Thing, as we know, through the Alan Moore, through Rick Veitch, through Doug Wheeler, through Nancy Collins, he now has a family. He has Abby. He has his daughter Tiffy, and he's happy. But was it all a dream? Suddenly, Alec Holland, the human being, wakes up in Peru, and he's investigating hallucinogenic plants. And when I say investigating, he just takes a lot of drugs.
Yeah,
And so,
he's just Grant Morrison at this time, right?
yeah, he wakes up from a dream and thinks that he's been hallucinating being a elemental swamp creature. And he has these theories that like humans can interface with plants through drugs because we can handle taking DMT and drugs and shit. And meanwhile, there's also a severely injured dude like in the corner, and for a while they keep teasing that, but it doesn't actually come back up in this issue yet. And so he goes to meet this guy, and Al Cullen inhales some crushed vines, and we get a double-page splash of total nonsense. It basically looks like glitch art, and the captions are just stream of consciousness bullshit.
I liked this page though.
Yeah, it's cool looking. It doesn't. If you try and read it, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
And it doesn't really look like anything in particular. And meanwhile, in New Orleans, I guess Abby is also having nightmares, and she thinks she's hearing from her dead ex-husband Matt. I think his name's Matt Cable. I should definitely know that. And she's also hallucinating. There's like a plant which overflows with blood. And
Kind of
then
a type moment there.
yeah, and it seems that her husband, sort of the swamp thing, is missing. Or she's freaking out about something beyond just her nightmare. And then we have these two weird drug addicts. At least I mean, they're not, the guy's like smoking weed. So I guess they're not drug addicts. They might just be weird fucking people. And he sets down his joint to go like hug his naked
No,
girlfriend who's vomiting.
he wants her to come back in because she's missing the best part of the movie.
Yeah. And Swampy reconstitutes himself from the joint, which is always fun. He's done that like at least one more time besides this. And of course, an infamous scene in the Garth Ennis Steve Dillon run on Hellblazer for Constantine's birthday. Swamp Thing shows up and grows some weed for everyone to smoke. So he reconstitutes himself from the joint and then seems to blast this dude's head open, murdering him. And then some insects just infest this woman and kill her.
Yeah.
And Swamp Thing is back, and that's how this issue ends and how this arc and run begins. And it's called Bad Gumbo. So what did you guys think of this issue?
It's very 90s Morrison crazy. But I actually didn't pay attention to who the artist was on this, so I didn't actually notice it was Phil Hester until you pointed it out, and that was cool to see. Very, very early kind of Phil Hester art.
Yeah, it's definitely a different style from some of his stuff eventually, but I think he's a very versatile artist because he does stuff like Green Arrow, which comes across a lot more mainstream, but then and this is 90s.
I love it, Arrow, though. I think
Yeah. And this is 90s stuff.
This was still cool.
This is 90s stuff, so obviously you'd expect a little bit of evolution, but he also, in some of his indie stuff, he can get very experimental. Here's the double page nonsense splash. Also, it's worth noting the inker. He's inked by Kim DeMolder here, who's a very critically acclaimed inker from like the 80s and 90s. But I think in the modern era, a lot of Phil Hester's work that is famous, he's often associated with Andy Parks inking him.
Yeah.
But Dan, I'm really interested to hear what you think, because I'm assuming you haven't really read any Swamp Thing ever in any context.
No, I mean, this is my first. Oh, sorry, I got to blow my nose. Sorry.
Professional, come on.
I know. I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? My nose is running. No, I mean, this is my first exposure to the character, and I can say this is definitely a hell of a place to start. It's just, like you said, it's pretty nonsensical. I mean, there, you know, in the beginning, obviously, we have that whole thing with him thinking that he's part of the that like humans can interface with animal, like with plants, and that's how they become like creatures. I was trying to follow the science as much as I could, but it just doesn't check out to me, and it was driving me nuts because like half the time I'm trying to read this, I'm thinking about, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, why does he think that just humans tolerating DMT like makes them part plant? I don't get that. So, but I guess it's best not to think too much about science with comics. But yeah, and then the last part with the whole drug people and all that stuff. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's a hell of a way to end an issue. I'll say that, you know, with Swamp Thing actually showing up at the end, it kind of makes me want to read the next issue because it's like, oh shit, like he's back in some form or another. But yeah, no, that was kind of my initial thoughts. So
I don't really remember what actually happens in the beginning of this run. Way later, the run turns into this whole like really digging deep into the elemental aspect of Swamp Thing. But this Bad Gumbo arc, it's not, you know, as we see in this issue, it's all about hallucinations and like toxicity and drugs and everything like that. I don't remember how it all shakes down, but to explain some more to Dan, what Alan Moore did with Swamp Thing about 120 issues before this, his huge shakeup was that, so the initial origin of Swamp Thing is Alec Holland falls in a swamp after an explosion, mixes in with some chemicals, and becomes this walking swamp creature.
of course,
What Alan Moore, his giant retcon, and this is a huge spoiler for one of the most acclaimed issues of all time, but you know, it was 40 plus years ago, and the issue is so good, I don't think it remotely ruins it, knowing what now everyone knows as the new proper origin of the character. So what Alan Moore did was, actually Swamp Thing is not Alec Holland at all. Alec Holland just straight up fucking died, but the chemicals and the swamp essentially like kind of absorbed not the consciousness, but the memories of Alec Holland. So Swamp Thing is actually literally just a plant creature who imitates Alec Holland and has some of his like subconscious memories. And so he's not Alec Holland at all. And so obviously the beginning of this issue, it's all hallucinations and bullshit. But eventually, Dan, you will probably look into the Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing. That's one of those evergreen DC things that most everyone reads.
yeah,
I wouldn't say DC things. I think that's comics in general, though.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's Swamp Thing 140. If you had to rate this 1 to 5, what would you guys give it?
I'd probably give it like a 3, maybe 3 or 4.
3.5.
Yeah, I'd say like 3.75.
I knew he was going to do that.
Has to be higher.
So next week, we spun the wheel. We got a book from 1965 in February from DC, and it's Aquaman Volume 1, number 19 by Bob Haney and Nick Cardy. And it includes Mara, Aqualad, should be some Silver Age fun.
Goody.
I think I'll probably enjoy it more than if we had landed on a Superman or Batman issue from 1965, to be honest.
Probably true, yeah.
Now we'll get right into the actual books that came out this week, and I have the honor of starting us off with Age of Conan Belit number 3. So this is the origin, slightly all ages themed origin story of Conan's sometimes love interest, Belit, the Queen of the Black Coast, pirate queen. And she's a teenager in this series, and so she bluffs dealing with the summoned sea monster from the end of last issue, and essentially extorts this island town or coast town to let them dock, resupply, and even fund them to go on these monster killing expeditions. But she's still not captain. And we flash forward years through adventure, still not captain. And their ruse has worn thin. And so they're kind of on the ropes and potentially expecting a navy to be chasing them down. And so Belit has a drunken duel with the captain of the ship and accidentally cuts the first mate's neck open who wanted to do the duel in the first place, and it wasn't supposed to be a lethal duel. And so then the captain goes crazy, and she ends up killing him too. So she just killed the two like named supporting characters in this book. And so suddenly now she is actually the captain, just in time for a navy to chase them. And then there's some mysterious dude who I think even if I was Conan fan, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to recognize him, or maybe I am. He's probably like her first mate. He's gonna join her, and it was fine. I liked the first, really the first issue more, where she was just this cute little brat girl, just being a complete asshole to everyone. Um, it's not essential reading, and I'll throw over to Mike for an actual Marvel book.
That's right, an actual Marvel book. Which my pick of the week, Invaders #5, World War Namor. Vince.
It's not actually called that.
Um, that's what's on the front of the book.
God damn it!
It's the name. It's the name at least of this issue. But Chip Zdarsky and Carlos Magno and Butch Guice. Holy crap! This book continues to be just everything I want from these characters. Well, maybe not so much from Namor, but I still like seeing all these characters hanging out, and the Butch Guice sequences are fantastic. And I think Carlos Magno, I think this is his best issue of the book, at least in my opinion. So we pick up with a flashback at the beginning to a mission of the invaders getting ready to sneak themselves into a market in Europe that's being occupied by the Nazis, and it's just once again a sequence showing Namor's differences with the way Cap and the rest of the invaders do business. And we flash forward to knowing that he does miss working with them, and he's not happy of how things have gone. But going through that, we cut back to Captain America and Winter Soldier because Dan, at the end of the last issue, Bucky was shot in the back of the head, and we all thought he was dead.
Oh no! Yeah, I was gonna say, how do
But
you
no,
that?
no, he's still alive. Chip Zdarsky has now become like the master of like the clever setups and payoffs that are I like. So it's revealed that the gun, the sidearm he gave to the naval officer that was helping him out snooping on the grounds was actually just had blanks in it. So got hit by blanks, so he was fine. I was like, oh, that's clever.
Hmm.
It was a good way to get out of it. But it's a race against time as Namor is he has a mole on the inside in the Navy, and they're going to fire missiles on Atlantis so Atlantis can attack back and basically plunge the world into a war against Atlantis. So Captain America has no choice now but to call in the Avengers as it's gotten too big, and kind of everything goes to hell as the missiles are launched, and they're launched away from where Cap placed the Avengers and thought they were going to be. As the end of this, Namor just levels a whole city, like multiple like cities in the United States. So I think Namor's pretty much dead set a bad guy, even if he is kind of like being controlled and from whatever Professor X did to him back in the past, with his memories coming back to haunt him here. But I thought like is the pacing of this issue ramping up with Cap jumping on the motorcycle, trying to spring into action and fight like this giant race against time, so these missiles don't get launched. I love this. I have definite like moments of parallels to like Brubaker's Cap run, with kind of the stakes like this, but I thought the stakes were pretty high and I felt it. And I thought Magno's action sequences, particularly with the Cap and Namor fight, were really, really good, and I can't wait to see what happens next. I'm loving this book.
I thought the Namor and Torch fight was really, really cool.
It's like the
And
third time we've seen them fight, and it's still awesome.
I don't know if you mentioned, but the Human Torch gets his head chopped off.
I did not. It was he kind of has like a David moment from what is it? What's that bad movie?
Alien Covenant? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the first one, Prometheus, where his head's just
Oh.
like sitting there and he's talking.
So the thing with Winter Soldier being alive, isn't this how Brandon Lee died?
Yes, Brandon Lee was killed by, but no, it wasn't. No, the gun was actually accidentally loaded. That was the thing. It was supposed to be blanks.
I thought it was still a blank. It's just if you shoot yourself point blank with a blank, it's still gonna really fuck you up. I'm not sure, but
No, it depends on blanks.
I mean he's a super soldier or whatever.
Yeah,
But I enjoy this series. I'm not huge on Magno, and obviously the Namor stuff really frustrates me, especially how it's ending here. But I think otherwise, characters are pretty spot on, and there's some fun stuff.
I think Magno's cap looks great with the scale mail though,
Yeah, he does a nice texture on the mail.
and he's got the Buccaneer boots. Like it, when I look at Captain America in this book, I'm like, all right, that's Captain America.
Yep, 1960s version or 1940s version.
Well, not exactly the 40s version, but yeah, like it's the way he should look.
Yep, yep.
Not wearing like a crappy, stupid helmet with drawn on wings
And a bunch of
and
lines.
fat boots. No, it's what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
I guess I'll continue and picking it up. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #6. It's a one-off issue. We got Tom Taylor and Juan Cabal, and introducing Spider-Bite. Spider-Man has a new kid sidekick, guys.
What about Alpha?
No one remembers that. We open and the Manhattan Bridge in New York City is Spider-Man's pinned down under a bunch of rubble by Doc Ock and Vulture, and this new Spiderling hero, Spider-Bite, who's 9.5, kind of think like Kid Flash, helps Spider-Man fight off all the villains as they're trying to get back this box that's been stolen that was the key to the city, and they end up going to Grand Central Station to fight the Sinister 60. Every Spider-Man villain's gathered. They fight them all off. And it's revealed that at the very end of all of it, after they beat all the villains, one's still left, and it's Stiltman, who's grown taller than before, who has the box to the key to the city. But it's all right. They beat him. And it turns out that the key to the city is a Spider-Man action figure. But the whole thing revealed here is that Spider-Bite starts coughing. And then the curtain falls, and we find out Spider-Man is hanging out with a kid that has a terminal disease, and this was kind of his make-a-wish. He wants to save New York with Spider-Man, and he did it with the help of everyone in the hospital dressing up as the villains, and Spider-Man coming to hang out with him for a day. And the kid he has to go to bed afterward, and he doesn't want to go to bed because he's scared he's not going to wake up. So Spider-Man has one last favor to grant. He asks the kid if he has a jacket, and he takes him swinging across the city. The end. It's a nice little sympathy one-off issue, like that tugs at your heartstrings. I've seen this story a million times, but hey, it's pretty good.
Right, that sounds amazing. It's kind of a kid who collects Spider-Man
Yeah,
vehicles,
it
etc.
was almost my pick of the week, but I like Invaders too much. Like I've seen this story a million times,
Yeah.
but I can say that this is done in a very, very good way. Also, Juan Cabal's art, his action sequences, is particularly in the part with the Sinister 60, absolutely amazing. It's this double page spread of there's like 20 panels on the page, and it's awesome. They also have a "If This Be My Destiny" moment where Spider-Bite helps Spider-Man lift the rubble off of him. So
Damn.
yeah, this is really
Now,
fun.
now
liked
I'm
it.
mad that the way the comic industry is now, I'm not sure how much of this to attribute to Marvel's promotion and solicits and how much to attribute to clickbait sites. But like this issue was marketed as Spider-Man gets a new sidekick and he's going to stick around and you might be annoyed by this. Obviously that's not the case.
Oh yeah, you don't want the curtain to be dropped. Like it was effective. I was like, before I saw it, when the curtain was dropped, when he started coughing, I didn't know what was going on here. I didn't know if this was like if it was an Elseworlds thing or not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it got the attention on the book, and you don't want to give it away. But I was really under the impression that suddenly in this secondary book, Spider-Man's going to have a sidekick for like half a year. But I'm definitely going to go back and read this now.
Yeah, you guys will definitely like this. This was really
I'll probably buy it.
We're not going to do a shameless plug for Spider Bites, Matt's ongoing Spider-Man series. Because Spider Bite.
You just did.
Oh, my bad.
So, I do want to, as a last shout out here, I would like to throw out recognition to Nolan Woodward and Federico Blee, the color artists on this book. Is the colors are absolutely gorgeous. This is everything I want out of a Spider-Man book. It's bright and it's colorful. It's not dark. It's the colors on Spider-Man's costume are absolutely perfect. And Wal Cabal's art on Spiderling is great, as like his costume's not quite up to par with Spider-Man's. Like you can see the folds in the fabric. Like it looks more like a Halloween costume, but it still works. It's great. This issue is really, really good.
Cool.
Dan, talk about Symbiote Spider-Man.
Oh God! Oh wait, am I talking about that? Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, so Symbiote Spider-Man #2, by Peter David, right?
Yep. Greg Land.
So let me just pull this up real quick. I wasn't prepared. I'm sorry. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is I didn't really know a lot about the series going into reading it. So
5-issue.
What'd you say?
It's a 5-issue miniseries.
5-issue miniseries. That's perfect. So I guess before this, Spider-Man's swinging around in a symbiote costume, and upon further investigation, we were told that this is like kind of set in the same setting as, in the 1980s when he came out of Secret Wars wearing the symbiote suit, which, I thought was a pretty cool period in Spider-Man's history. I read most of that. Well, actually, all of it, I guess. And you get an opening to a film that's going on where this guy is supposed to be like hitting this guy, and he actually hits him like for real and knocks him out and like breaks his face. So the actors or the director's like, "You're fired. We're gonna escort you out of here." And then the guy's like, "You're not gonna get rid of me. I'm going to leave." And then he gets into his trailer to go leave, and he runs into Mysterio, dressed up in his usual garb, the fishbowl helmet, all that stuff. And he's pretty much just talking to him about, how he's an arch enemy of Spider-Man, how they want to team up and take him down. He gives him a thing of money. It's really, when I was reading this issue, it just felt very campy to me. It felt like a 1970s issue, like, let's team up and take Spider-Man down. It didn't really have a lot of substance to me, I don't think.
Well, there's no substance in this book at all.
What'd you say?
There's no substance in this book at all.
No, and it's really unfortunate because, like, this is a really cool era in Spider-Man's history that you could really delve into and explore more with different characters and stuff in the era, and we're just wasting it on a really really boring fight. I mean, pretty much the end of this is, Mysterio giving this guy these powers to fight against him, and then at the end, the symbiote actually, like, I think, attacks him, right?
Yeah,
I think it kills him.
Spider-Man, because he's kind of like Colossus, where he's just like he's just big and he can't he's like an immovable object type of dude, and he's super strong, and he's just
Yeah.
able to punch out Spider-Man like nothing, and then the symbiote like crawls up into him and just
Yeah.
basically
And just like
explodes him from the
explodes.
inside out is what it looks like because it makes Mysterio throw up in the fishbowl.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say we get like a few pages. Like we get one page after that initially happens that he's like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna throw up," and then we get another page, like a whole page of him just being like, "Oh my god, I had to throw up about that. That was so gross." And then we get some random doctor that shows up at the end. It's really, I mean, I just don't. I was reading this and I was just waiting to finish it because it was just really bad.
Spider-Man's also hardly
What?
Spider-Man's hardly in this issue.
I know. It's mostly just the villains just talking about what they're gonna do.
Well, I was really disappointed by this issue because I was somewhat surprised to enjoy the first one.
Well, we enjoyed the first one, but we didn't love it.
Yeah, but the first one you were, and Dan jumped in cold with the second issue. So to catch up, the first issue they were actually dealing with stuff from the era. We
Yeah.
had Pete hanging out with Black Cat in both his Peter Parker guys and Spider-Man. We had Aunt May show up, and there was a major moment at the end of the first issue where, as far as we know, this is essentially the first time this is shown, or maybe it happened back then in Spectacular, but Felicia Hardy like formally meets Aunt May in the end of the first issue. And in this issue, Black Cat and Aunt May aren't in here at all.
They're only
There's not
mentioned.
really it's not really any other actual status quo stuff. And furthermore, like I get it, you got to show this stupid character to get, I don't know, it's dumb, but like this no-name character that we've never seen before, who's introduced for this continuity insert series, beats up symbiote suit Spider-Man with a few punches.
I know, that's bullshit.
I get it. You want, sometimes you got to do certain things for the plot. You got to knock out the hero.
Well,
This is
Spider-Man jobbed out here. Which with retroactive continuity, we've established that symbiote Spider-Man is more powerful than regular normal Spider-Man. Okay, fine. But he's just like jobbed out here completely. He gets like 3 punches and boom, dead. And the guy's just going to shoot him in the head. And if it wasn't for the symbiote climbing up and killing him, sayonara, Spidey.
Yeah, this just feels like, from what you described, Vince, this just sounds like a totally different book. I mean, I really wish I would have read that first issue because that seems like that's like at this time and like throughout Spider-Man's history, like that's what I always loved the most. Is not so much the action scenes as so much the cast of characters that Spider-Man surrounds himself with.
Yeah. And furthermore, the first issue had some nuance, which is just lightly teased in this issue, which you probably didn't pick up on to the full extent since you came in blind. But the setup also was that Mysterio didn't really have a beef with Spider-Man in the first issue, but Spider-Man chased him down and beat him up because he's Mysterio, one of his regular villains. And so in this issue, it's kind of referenced that Spidey actually is trying to find Mysterio so that he can talk to him and apologize.
Mm-hmm.
But without that context, you probably didn't know that. And so that's another layer of how the first issue had a few aspects that were interesting.
Yeah.
And so I'll probably read the third issue, but we'll see if it comes around. If the third issue is very similar to this one, I'll probably not finish the series.
Mm-hmm.
Now, real quick trip to Indie Corner. I think I'm the only person that read a independent non-big book.
It was a late week in general.
We've got Section 0, number 2, the reprint comic from 2000.
I was reading your brand new, but actually like written in the 90s indie book.
Yeah. So 24-hour bug, the insect boy, and Tesla, the alien, they're best buds. They're getting along in this issue initially. It's kind of fun, kind of cute. And then Tina Challenger, the chick character, she's examining the giant fish man body from the end of last issue. when it suddenly grabs her and then starts absorbing all the moisture from the air. So the guy character, Wildman, cuts off its arm, and she starts making a ton of crappy water puns. And it turns out this big fish dude is actually a good guy, and he's going to regrow his hand as well. But 24-hour Bug got left behind, and he gets attacked by a saber-toothed cat, which they were looking for because it was killing sheep in the area or something. And the saber-toothed cat escapes through a portal, dragging Tina along with it. Then we get a flashback to 1992 with the backstory of Tina Challenger and Wildman when they were married. They're on their honeymoon, and they're in Czechoslovakia during the Civil War, and they kill a troll. And this troll setup was he would protect this town from getting involved in the Civil War, getting bombed and mines in it and everything like that, in exchange for eating a child once a week.
What?
And so they kill this troll, but there's like some moral quandary because it's like, okay, we killed the troll and we're saving these kids, but also the Civil War is going to come to this town now. So did we actually fuck them over? And Tina starts running because they're going to run back to the hotel because they're on their honeymoon and they just finished their mission. And suddenly a landmine goes off, and it's all off panel, but it's kind of implied that she loses her legs, but she totally has legs in the present. So maybe they're prosthetic, maybe they're regrown, maybe she's a clone. You never know. And we catch up with her in the present, but maybe it's not the present because first she sees a jackalope run across. And if you're not familiar with your shitty Mexican/American fake animals, a jackalope is a rabbit with deer antlers. And then we see a pterodactyl and zoom out, and there's all kinds of dinosaurs.
Also say
Lost Land.
it's not real. A jackalope doesn't exist.
Not real. And so that's section 0, number 2. It's kind of wacky, Silver Age, challenging, the unknown, fun.
I love that Dave Gibbons has a cover for this.
Yes, so does Michael Ringo and George Perez.
Were drawn like 20 years ago.
Yeah. All right, back to Big 2. We're jumping into DC.
I'm taking Batman and the Outsiders?
Yes.
Okay. Batman and the Outsiders, number 1 by Brian Hill. He's dropped the Edward off of his name. He's just Brian Hill now.
Yep.
And Dexter Stoy. This book directly is spinning out of Brian Hill's Detective Comics run, which I haven't read yet. So there's some references here that I had to piece together by myself, but this issue opens with a father and daughter driving in a car, and they're attacked by this mystical being dude who kills her dad and throws the girl off the bridge, and we find out that she's indestructible and she has superpowers just like he does. And then we cut to Gotham City as the Signal, which is Duke, Orphan, which is Cassandra Cain, are in the heat of battle waiting for Black Lightning to show up. They're fighting against a souped up armor guy with a Gatling gun who calls himself St. John, and he keeps shooting up churches. So kind of topical right there. But basically this whole sequence, also Katana is introduced in that sequence as well. They're all arguing as Duke as he acted and didn't wait for backup, as we cut to Bruce Wayne and Jefferson Pierce. It's Jefferson Pierce, right?
Yes.
Is that his last name? Is Black Lightning? Talking about how it's Black Lightning's team, Batman sanctions it, and you kind of have to figure out what to do, like do a do what you want thing. Batman's looking into the disappearance with the death, and it's revealed that this is the only remaining people of a family he saved from this like messed up warehouse that was experimenting and experimenting on people. These were the only people he was able to save. And Batman has tasked the Outsiders to go and track them down and see if they can save her. Duke's going through stuff that happened he's kind of has like these PTSD like symptoms that are going on from spinning out of Hill's run on Detective, and their mission is to go track down this family. And I like that I thought Duke was going to be the leader of this team, so welcome surprise that Black Lightning is the leader of this team, because I like Black Lightning. Batman not really in this book a lot, which is what I like, because I like that it focuses more on the outsiders. I thought Dexter Soy's art here was really, really good. He draws a great Batman, and I think his action sequences were really, really crisp. But at the end of the issue, we go to the girl on the run, and she's being saved by this robot man from the future, as this girl is basically the savior of Earth in the future. So we'll see what happens here. Ishmael is the name of the guy that's trying to hunt her down. So this was good. I thought it was a good opening issue. Definitely going to stick on for the first arc at the very least. What did you guys think?
I mean, I think it's pretty good setup for what's coming. I mean, other than like the beginning of the issue, there really isn't a lot of like action sequences. But no, I think it's really interesting to follow. I mean, the beginning with like just driving in the car and the person just showing out of nowhere and throwing the father out the window and then throwing the girl down into that tanker trunk. I think that kind of grabs your attention from the beginning. But no, I mean, for me, it's a lot of new characters I've never met, never learned of before. So definitely something to keep track of.
I like that the team's very condensed too. It's just Duke, Katana, Black Lightning, and Orphan, and then Batman, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, on the note of new characters, is the weak link for me is obviously Duke. I didn't read the entirety of Scott Snyder's run. I haven't read really any of the spin-off stuff where Duke may have been more prominent, like the Eternal Weeklies or whatever. And so I
haven't read Robin either.
Yeah, so I don't know shit about Duke. And in to further complicate that is all of his kind of like the way he comes into this book, like all of his emotional issues and arc, they're all footnoted to the Detective Comics arc, which Brian Hill wrote effectively as a prelude to this. And again, I didn't read that either. So it's like everything Duke says and is referencing and everything he's going through, I'm going in completely blind for a character that I'm already completely blind on. So for me, it was like, I have zero interest in Duke, and you're annoying me by attempting to provoke interest by referring to stuff that I haven't read. That's mostly.
I feel like that's more of a you problem.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, I think once I think it definitely would have helped to read that detective arc before this. But I think for the most part, besides the Duke stuff, you can go into this without it.
Yeah.
My other main comment is that this issue seems to confirm the pronunciation of Ra's al Ghul, because he's behind some of this stuff going down.
Right.
And someone says his name, and then Sophia repeats Roz, R-O-Z. So she doesn't say like R-A.
Raz al Ghul, so maybe she's mispronouncing it. So I'm not entirely sure on that one, Vince.
Well, it's definitely not Raish.
Well, I've never called him Raish.
Yeah, I know, but the main debate is Roz versus Raish. As far as
personally, I don't care what you call him as long as it's not Raz.
Raz.
But I think Duke. I learned to like Duke in seeing him in Tom King's Batman run. He was kind of Batman's main sidekick in that book. I also really like the lineup shot we have of Batman and the rest of the team just kind of standing there in the wide shot. I thought that was a really good panel.
Oh yeah. That was really cool. What are we talking
about? But no, I like this. I like that the team's condensed. although I already said that. I think there's room for like one more member
Yeah, I
or
think
like a member.
yeah, it could take on more. I mean, especially since Mike is going to get to in a second, but Detective, they kind of changed the premise for that book, and so now we have more Bat family characters kind of missing in action, not
Well, that
regularly
makes sense
featured.
because if we remember at the end of Batman 70, Batman told Bane he's bringing his army to him.
Yeah, true.
So I'm thinking that the Outsiders and Robin, maybe Nightwing will be back to normal by that point, hopefully. We'll see what happens. But Tim Drake is getting his new persona in Young Justice number 7. But I'm assuming Tim Drake's going to play a part in that as well. But I think the only other character that I would like to see that I know has been an outsider before is Metamorpho, but he's on the Terrifics right now. But yeah, I wouldn't go more than 5 on the Outsiders as far as total number of members. But yeah, I like this. It was good. I'll take Detective Comics number 1003. We've learned who Arkham Knight is, everybody.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Who is it?
Astrid Arkham.
Okay.
It's Jeremiah Arkham's daughter.
Oh, it's a woman.
Yeah, it's a woman.
They didn't even use the boob armor.
No, they didn't.
Damn. Okay.
Uh,
I'm okay with that.
this issue is pretty much all Robin like escaping or talking and figuring out what her what Arkham Knight's plan is, which I'm still unsure exactly what her plan is. It's I guess to prove and expose Batman, but also lead the city into a new kind of under a new guidance and leadership. But like there's moments where her minion knights are like trying to attack Robin. She's like cutting their hands off to like so it looks like they don't fully have her authority under, but I like the Damian and Arkham Knight moments. She just lets him go. He gets shot with an arrow, and he's able to contact Batman in the sky by taking off his Robin logo and putting it under a light, so he makes a giant R in the sky for Batman to find him. And I liked that. The rest of the issue is basically a Batman and Robin team up, which feels like forever since I've read a Batman and Robin team up. Tomasi definitely gets these characters' dynamics, specifically with Bruce and Damian. Um, I don't know if this was established in his Batman and Robin run, but since Bruce doesn't have any files on what she looks like, Damian's able to draw her completely from memory because he's got a photographic memory and good artistic skills. So if you pay attention to every Robin has had like a particular kind of set of skill that's unique to them. Like Tim Drake has his computer hacking, Dick with his acrobatics. I like that Damian has drawing kind of in his repertoire. I thought that was a neat thing to add.
And being an asshole.
I mean, he hasn't been an asshole for a while.
Yeah.
But they figured out that Arkham Knight's base is under Arkham Asylum. So they get into this. So Batman pulls out this giant vehicle, of course, that's going to tunnel under Arkham, and Damian gets to drive it. Which I thought that was some fun banter between there. And Dr. Phosphorus is being used to burn like crests into people's backs to prove loyalty. It's all kind of weird and crazy, and I'm liking it. The art here, still Brad Walker, but holy crap, it's still good. I'm really liking this. Mostly due to the fact of a Batman and Robin dynamic, which is clearly Tomasi picking up where he left off on Batman and Robin. But it's still fun to like. It feels like I said, it feels like forever since I've actually seen Batman and Robin working together. So I'm very much down for that. There's a beautiful kind of semi splash. It's not the whole page of Batman and Robin jumping into action out of their giant like mining vehicle, which is pretty cool.
Actually, there was a major other bit of news, and we're going to bury it here in this part of the show because you just reminded me. So Patrick Gleason is now an exclusive artist at Marvel.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about
That's right. How did we forget that? We're
Yeah.
professionals.
that.
He's leaving after I'm assuming at some point DC gave him an exclusive contract or something, but he worked for DC for basically 17 years in a row.
Yeah.
Before that, he kind of got discovered as one of the artists on Jay Faerber's Image superhero series called Noble Causes. And then at DC, did Aquaman, Brightest Day, Batman and Robin, Superman stuff.
He drew most of
Green Lantern
Superman under Tomasi.
Tons of stuff, and a lot of it, probably his 3 most known runs with Peter Tomasi. And so he'll be over at Marvel and rotating with Ryan Ottley, at least for a little while, on Amazing Spider-Man, which we keep up with and read Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man. So that'll be real exciting when we get to read a Patrick Gleason Spider-Man issue.
And you know what? Kind of the right artist for that tone of the book.
It'll be like when Dan Jurgens drew him in the Clone Saga.
Yeah,
Kind of comparable.
kind of. But I think this past issue of Young Justice was his final issue.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dan, take us over to Flash 70.
All right, so so Flash 70 is, I guess,
Cocaine problem?
what?
Do you have a cocaine problem?
Yeah, that's definitely why I have all this definitely going on. That's someone else I know. Anyway, so year one, year one, chapter 1 of the Flash. The cover says his origin starts here, so perfect time for me to jump on and kind of, learn more about the Flash. So we get an opening to a lightning storm, and you have Bartholomew. How do you say that?
Just say Barry.
Okay, Barry Henry Allen, in the attic of his parents' house, just looking through some old comics, and they're old.
Specifically, Flash comics.
Old
They are
J-
the covers of the old Jay Garrick books.
Yep. I was just about to say that. So that's funny. There, he's going through them, and just reminiscing. This is obviously a flashback to, his time spent with his mother, and then we open to 15 years later, where he's on the scene of a murder, and he's talking with this this policeman, just shooting the breeze a little bit, and he's talking about how he I think the policeman guy's just kind of dicking around with him, and Barry's like, I'm trying to actually do my work here, can you stop? And then Iris West shows up, and then she talks to him, all that stuff, blah blah blah, and then she leaves, and then he goes back to the office to actually before, he's walking through the Central City and trying, just thinking about how bad this place can be sometimes. And then he gets runs into this family with this guy that's playing ball with these kids, and he runs into him, and he's expecting like a total fight with this guy, and the guy's like, no worries, man. So he goes back to it's raining again, lightning storm. Very very heavy on the foreshadowing in this issue. He's looking in his office, trying to put together pieces of, I guess, his mother's murder, and he thinks, well, people, I guess, incriminated his dad, and he's trying to find the clues to clear his dad of his name from murdering his mom. So he's just looking through there, looking on his phone, and then all of a sudden lightning comes through the window and zaps him with chemicals, and that's how Flash is born. So we get a really cool, red and yellow panel here that's having, Barry flashing back to his, time with his mom, and then his son, or not his son, his father talking to him about, that he murdered his mother. All in between there, we get, him going to the hospital, all that stuff, and then the rest of the issue, he wakes up, kind of figures out his powers. First thing he does is he knocks over a tray of his food, and he grabs it really quick, and he's like, whoa, this is really cool. Goes running around, run to his apartment, runs into the police department, I guess. I'm not sure where that's at. Runs back to his
Central
office.
City.
What's that?
It's in Central City.
Oh yeah, okay, in Central City. And the coolest part I think of this whole thing is how he's kind of like creating his costume a little bit as he goes along. Like the first thing he does is his shoes are like constantly running out. So like there's one panel that shows him like just has like a pile of shoes because he keeps like burning them up from running so fast.
My thing with it is how many pairs of shoes? Like it takes him like easily over like 25 pairs of shoes to realize I need different shoes.
Yeah, and they don't really explain. I mean, like, oh, I guess it says Wayne Tech donated fireproof jackets to the Central City Fire Department. So I'm assuming that he like used those fireproof jackets to make his shoes, which I guess
Yeah,
is
they were part of the outfit.
yeah. So then he starts running through that. He runs so fast that he actually like breaks through, I guess, through time, and he comes out the other side, and there's like these people that are like, what was this? Turtle? It's like turtle people. I don't know what they are. Um, and then he runs into his older self, and he's like, when are we going to learn how dangerous time travel is? And then that's the end of the issue. So overall, I think it's a pretty simple thing to follow, but it's really cool.
I should say that apparently, I looked back. Apparently, the Old Man Barry is from earlier in Joshua Williamson's run on the book. So I guess that's all going to tie in. Vince, you take it first. What do you think of this?
I actually really like this. I'm not quite sure if and where Josh Williamson might be pulling certain things from. I don't watch the TV show. I don't know how this compares to that. I've read Showcase number 4 multiple times, obviously. That would be the very, very original Origin of Barry Allen. Certain things are definitely new here. I think Mike did point out the logic behind it, but I think the stacked up pile of shoes is a really cool visual. And obviously, it's super cool that the Flash was inspired by the Flash in comic books. And of course, that eventually connects in the Silver Age when they establish the multiverse with Flash of Two Worlds.
And hey, shameless plug. If you want to see us talk about that issue, go back and read, first, read that issue because it's good. But 2, watch the first episode of Crisis Cast, which may never come back.
Yep. To be determined. But the other thing is, so like in most of the other tellings of the Origin that I know of, the whole going to the hospital and into a coma thing doesn't happen. It's kind of just like he gets reading, and then he's running around figuring out his powers. And so I think that's new. And I like how Williamson frames his experimentation of his powers as essentially investigating another crime scene.
Yeah, I really like that.
Oh yeah, so I forgot about that. Yeah.
And it's also like there's funny stuff. Like Barry's like, yeah, before I got superpowers, I didn't really like running. I wasn't much of a runner.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he has to run. And someone pointed out recently, like the current Justice League arc, which Mike has been reading, some of them don't have powers or whatever bullshit at the moment. And there's a scene where they're all running away from something or to something, and they don't have their powers. And so Barry is actually in the back of all of the Justice League.
Yeah.
Because without his powers, apparently he's the slowest one, which is funny. It's a funny twist. I think the Wayne. I didn't really need the Wayne Tech boot reference. I'll take Dan's interpretation that okay, Wayne Tech developed this fabric, but then Barry actually makes his costume from it, rather than he.
It makes more sense considering that the boots have lightning bolts on them.
Yeah, that has to be it. But I still sort of don't like that. Oh, Bruce Wayne, or like my costume is based on Bruce Wayne designs.
Well, is it because it's Bruce Wayne designs, or would you rather have him just coming up with it himself?
Yes.
He's kind of a scientist. Or would you prefer it if it was like Cord Industries?
No, I would prefer if he did it all himself.
Okay.
But we don't get the full costume at all, so we don't get the ring or anything yet. I don't really know where this is going because obviously at the very end of this issue, like, okay, maybe it's not an origin anymore.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this. I mean, I think Josh Williamson is kind of like a perfect journeyman, and obviously he clearly really loves the Flash. I mean, he's 70 issues in and has touched on most of the rogues.
Him and Tom King. Yeah, what? It's him, Tom King, and then Christopher Priest on Deathstroke. They're the longest tenured guys
Yep.
since Rebirth began. They haven't moved.
And Deathstroke hasn't stayed double shipping the entire time, I believe. It's not 70 issues in.
Well, yeah, well, we didn't think it was going to stay that way, but
And I mean, technically, so Flash, these are 70 issues of the Flash, but Josh Williamson also has written 4 issues of Batman.
that's true.
Across the Button and the Price or whatever. So he's got a real lengthy run here, and I mean, I respect that. I don't know. The story is interesting. I mean, I was kind of thinking we've seen the lightning strike, the chemicals, probably a billion times. You know, it's just like the Wayne's getting shot or Spider-Man getting bit or any bullshit like that. But I don't like we haven't really gotten an extended Barry Allen origin in a long time, and
Right.
I don't think we necessarily need one, but whatever. But again, I don't think this might not be it. I enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
I think the parallels to this. I think there's definitely more Green Lantern Secret Origin, um, stuff with this from from Jeff Johns' run than just an actual like or year one type of we're redoing it kind of thing. Because obviously with Jeff Johns on Green Lantern Secret Origin, we still got the origin for how Hal Jordan got the ring, but it was also interlaced with Black Hand, Black Hand's origin, which was a big factor in setting up Blackest Night and stuff like that, and then also with Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns because he was the villain in that first story. So I think it's more in kin to something like that. But I don't think we talked about Howard Porter's art really here at all. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Obviously different from his stint on Justice League back in the 90s with Morrison, but I think he he captures the running sequences really, really well.
I believe. I'm trying to very quickly check this, but I believe he had an injury at some point, and so his style has changed a bit.
It's changed a bit, but it's still like I look at it and go, yeah, that's Howard Porter.
Yeah, around 2006 or so. Yeah, in 2006, he was penciling Trials of Shazam with Judd Winnick, but he severely injured his hand, severed a nerve, and almost the entire tendon in his thumb, and so he had to recover, and he became a school bus driver for 2 years, and then became the regular penciler on Titans, also with Judd Winnick. And so I think his style, you know, if you screw your hand up that much, even if you recover, you're going to expect your style to change a little bit. And I really like this. It's got a nice mix of cartoony and fluid. This isn't on him. I kind of wish the colors were a little brighter,
Yeah.
I agree.
a little more 4-color superhero-y. But again, Barry's
We'll
not.
get there though, as the book
Yeah,
goes on.
exactly. He's not in his actual costume yet, so we'll probably get to that point. And I'm pretty sure the regular book, you know, obviously the Flash has a giant red and yellow costume, granted with stupid lines on it, but I'm sure the book is usually a lot more colorful and bright.
Do you think we'll see Wally West near the end of this story?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a true origin story, he has to factor into this somehow. and we'll see how that works out. I mean, in flashback, but we'll see. No reference at all to him in here, though. But Barry,
other than his aunt being in this book, but
yeah, but Barry's relationship with Iris isn't really developed yet.
Hasn't even begun yet.
Yeah,
but yeah. I thought this was fun. I liked it. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mike, close this out with another.
Well, all right. It's Wonder Twins number 4, right?
Yep.
By Wonder Twins number 4 by Eisner-nominated writer Mark Russell.
This is true.
It's a double date issue. Coming out of we have Jaina going on a date with the Red Flag, who's like this crappy villain, and I can never remember what the guy's name is.
Zan.
But yeah, Zan. Zan's going on a date with this girl he meets outside the science fair, because Jaina's the science fair friend whose dad works for Lex Luthor. And what happens here is he goes to the movies and he's just like happy to hang out with people because Superman gives them the night off because it's the annual like mixer, like Catalina wine mixer for the Legion. So they do anything that night. So everyone in the Fortress Assault, not the Fortress, and everyone in the Hall of Justice just takes the night off, and they wax the floors. So everyone has the night off, and they both go on dates. The humor in this issue, once again, still good. Mark Russell's able to like interlace humor with social commentary, but his so far not a lot of social commentary happening in this issue, other than like sometimes you have to make bad decisions, help out yourself. But I think like, I'm making a stretch on that, just because the dad that's working for Lex Luthor still has to do it, just because he's in debt to Lex. But I like how like there's this theme of Lex Luthor owning everything in the TC universe. It's very clearly the Fox News logo, but on this there's a billboard outside on a wall on a building that says Lex News, and it's a picture of Lex, and it says "We're angry as you are" on it. That makes me laugh. And then they go to a movie. Zan and his date go to a movie, but before that, he takes her out to dinner at Garlic Dungeon, which is making fun of Olive Garden. So like, there's like these just little jokes placed in there. But what's fair is that Zan, while he's hanging out with this girl, totally is that her ex-boyfriend's there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, just invite him and like they can hang out." And they end up movie, and like there's this great series of panels of them getting back together while Zan's just eating popcorn, and he just like whispers over to the ex-boyfriend, and he's like, "Hey, do you want some popcorn?" While he's like his date's just completely ruined. But then at the end, he feels just like, "Hey, you know what? Maybe it didn't." As Red and Jaina confirm, you're kind of a loser. He's like, "No, it's fine. I made a friend for life." Well, I'm 17 years old, and that relationship probably wasn't going to work out. Just his weird way of going about things is just funny with his optimistic attitude, like continuing through the series. Like he's happy to be Bucky team, but for Dan, I'll tell you, read the first issue. Zan is part of the hockey team on his high school, but his power is that he can turn into a form of water.
A form?
He's just the ice for. Yeah, he's just the ice for the hockey team. So and he's the perfect ice. So that's his position on the team.
Does he count as a man on the ice?
No, he couldn't. He can't accept the puck.
Yeah.
Or can
but
he?
it's just his face on the ice, which is hilarious. And like the coach says, that's dang good ice. Because you want your ice conditions to be good. But Zan and Jaina's date goes kind of horribly, as it's very clearly the red flag just wants to get her alone and basically have sex with her, and she's just not having it. But something else happens, and she turns into a cheetah and runs off. So because she chases after, she's going to chase after her friend who found out that her dad's still working for Lex Luthor. So that's what's going to happen. It was also revealed that, I don't know if this was revealed right at the start, but this is a miniseries. It's only going to be 6 issues, and this continues to be really fun and goofy, and I like it.
Yeah, I think it was probably destined to be a miniseries.
Yeah, I don't feel like this could carry on for like 25 issues.
I think Dial H will be a miniseries. And obviously we know Naomi.
And Naomi's definitely a miniseries.
We know Naomi is one, though it'll come back. So just Young Justice as an ongoing.
If wondering if the movie that they went and saw, that Zan went and saw Gun Cop, and he's like, first I thought the villains were really good at murdering people, and then I knew the heroes were better at murdering people than the bad guys. He walked out of the movie theater wearing a Gun Cop T-shirt didn't have when he walked in, which I thought was funny. So somehow along the lines of him seeing the movie and exiting the theater, he managed to get a T-shirt with the logo of the film on it. So yeah, just a lot of small, subtle things that are funny in this book that I really like. Mark Russell is endlessly able to craft humor out of these weird moments with these weird DC characters. The Red Flag, for example, being basically a supervillain in training, and he's just a greeter that's handing out flyers at this Catalina wine mixer for supervillains. But he thinks he's awesome. So there you go. A fun book. If you want a funny book to read, it'll make you laugh. Wonder Twins continues to not disappoint. But that's our show for this week. Dan, what'd you think? It's one show down for you. Are you gonna come back next week?
Yeah, I definitely will. I'm actually traveling next week for work, but I should have time during my flights to read some stuff and get caught up for the video. So, but no, this was fun. Like I said, I don't really read a lot of modern release comics, so being able to catch up and read some new stuff is really cool.
Awesome.
What was the thing that impressed you most this week? What was your favorite book of this week, out of this batch at least?
I feel like
I should say, what do you definitely want to continue with?
I feel like Flash might be it's either Flash or Batman the Outsiders. I thought those two were really good. But I would say Flash probably more so.
Yeah, I think my pick is also Flash, actually. Now that I fully think about everything I read.
I'm still
my favorite thing with single issues especially is I need something that's gonna happen at the end of the issue to make me be like, oh, I definitely need to come back next issue and see what the hell is going on. I feel like a lot of Spider-Man issues that I read in collections had that where the last page a splash of something that was really crazy, and you're like, oh shit, I need to read the next issue right away. So I feel like that Flash issue kind of did that with me. It ends it really on a crazy note where you're like, what's gonna happen next? So
yep. All right.
Yep.
And good chance we may get some other people popping in and out. It's now the summer approaches, and the actual students of S.H.I.E.L.D. they're on a little bit slower time. So we will see if we can convince any of them to pop in. Thanks for watching this episode.
I'm sure Dan will probably also share hauls from whatever we grab this weekend at Phillipsburg Comic Con.
Definitely.
Well, you'll probably just make a haul video yourself, so I'll share what I got.
Yeah, maybe it's both. Yeah, we'll see.
Yep. So check out for that, and we'll catch you next time.